Hi, I am Mr. Torrance, sitting here with legendary coach, Emmy Award winning,
Yes.
multiple CIF title winning, Bruce Rollinson of Modern Day High School. And we want to sit here and come to you today and talk about what's going on in the United States right now and how it mirrors exactly what you've been through in your lifetime. So we often talk about being on the right side of history and what that means to the majority of the people around us. And I just want to sit here and talk to Coach Bruce Rollinson, legendary head coach Bruce Rollinson, of what it means to him being on the right side of history as we go through almost a similar situation compared to the 70s and the 60s.
Yeah, you know what, Jeff? You know, it's a pleasure to be here tonight, and you know, the legendary part comes because I'm old. Okay, I'm probably sitting here because I've seen a lot of history go by. I lived high school and college through the 60s.
Right.
You know, watched the chaos of the Vietnam War, watched the chaos of demonstrations on campus. It wasn't COVID, but I think it was my junior year, second semester, they closed the university, and there was no remote learning. You took the grade, or you had to run the risk, sign a waiver that you would continue going to class knowing that it could be dangerous. You know, there were no athletics similar to last March.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and history has a tendency to repeat itself, as you and I know. I mean, you know, it's not the first rodeo where we've had social unrest, where we've had problems within this great country, and you know, yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot, I've witnessed a lot, and hopefully, you know, I can share some of that experience with everybody today.
Right. And so what I want to do as a younger guy is kind of talk to you and basically just touch on some of the subject matters that we are seeing right now, because for someone like me, this is brand new. It's stuff that I've only read about in history books. When I'm sitting in my class as a sophomore in high school, I'm like, that was the past. Something like this could never, ever happen again. And now here I am saying to myself, oh my goodness, I can't believe something like this is happening again. And now that I'm an adult, I'm not saying that it won't happen again, but what do I do? How do I react?
Well, you hope it doesn't happen again, but it's everything goes in cycles. All you got to do is look at the economy. But you know what we're referring to is that I was fortunate to be on a football scholarship at USC during the time that we're talking about, when the racial riots were heating up in a big way. I mean, Watts was on fire, and Detroit was on fire, and there were demonstrations everywhere, you know, and you didn't avoid it. We had demonstrations right on campus on a daily basis.
Right.
And, you know, at the start of my sophomore year, Coach John McKay, the legendary coach that I had the privilege to play for, had previously during the summer met with Bear Bryant, and they came to an agreement that the Trojans would open in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We were ranked #1 in the nation, but it really was a bigger picture, which I didn't realize as a player.
Right.
You know, the Alabama football team was not integrated. It was an all-white football team.
All-white football team in the SEC.
Yeah, and one of 3 or 4 others. Obviously, you know, you and I have talked about, you know, the Civil Rights Bill had already been passed.
Right.
They were supposed to be integrating the schools, and yet here is one of the top universities and football powerhouses, and there's no black athletes, and here comes a highly integrated football team. It's important, you know, to try to tell the complete story. You know, I played here at Modern Day High School.
Right.
And it never occurred to me that we only had one black player on our team. You know, and Orange County was pretty much a white community. But it's not something any of us ever thought about.
Kids don't really think about that kind of stuff.
No, we thought about where we were going to get lunch, how many times could we get to the beach, okay?
Yeah.
Who was going out with who. The
Right.
same thing kids think about today.
He's wearing my Letterman's jacket.
Exactly, exactly. So, you know, none of that had an impact on me. I knew things were going on in the outside. I read about it. I'd hear my parents discussing it. And I think it's important to know a little bit about my parents. You know, that they were both, we moved out from New York. They didn't explain to us about integration and segregation. I think they let the education take care of that.
Right.
But they also never, there was no racial problems or any connotations that I ever got from my parents.
Right.
You know, they treated everybody equally. And that's the way I was brought up.
Right.
And so, you know, I graduate and I head up to the university, and to me it wasn't any big deal that, you know, we had a lot of outstanding black athletes, black players. You know, when I went in, it's the O.J. Simpson era, you know, and Earl McCullough. It has to be mentioned that I started to become aware before the Alabama game, you know, because we were going to have a black quarterback named Jimmy Jones. And who cares? I mean, he was really good.
If you can play, you can play.
That's exactly what to anybody I hung around with, or any white guy that I hung around with, we wanted to win. We wanted to be undefeated. We were looking for a national championship ring. And yes, they did give rings back then, not as big as the big fatties we get now. And we wanted to go to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
That was our goal.
I watched a documentary Against the Tide
Yeah.
that you are in, and one of the main things that they said is that USC has a tradition of integration.
Yeah.
They've been integrating their school since the early 50s,
Yeah.
where it was unheard of. You know, they had All-American black linemen, they had All-American black offensive linemen, defensive linebackers, and running backs as well. And it was just one of those things that USC always does this. They've always been ahead of the curve. And so I thought that, you know, that was amazing that you know, not only did you go to modern day, but you went to a team that has a history of integration.
Yeah, and again, you know, I don't think any of us came in and said, oh, you know, look at all these black guys.
Yeah, you were, yeah.
What we came in was survival. Okay, so it was dog eat dog. You had to compete every day. You had to have your A game every day, or you weren't getting on the airplane. And in honesty, that sophomore year, that's all I cared about, was to get on that airplane.
Right.
That thing could have been going to Alaska for a game. I could have cared less. Okay, and it never occurred to me. I knew we were going to be walking into a big game when they put Alabama on the schedule, but I didn't know we would be walking into a historical game,
Right.
and a game that has a major impact on college football even today.
Right. So for those of you who don't know, this game, USC versus Alabama, is touted as the game that changes the face of the South. So like Coach said, before this, there were like 3 or 4 teams, even though the Civil Rights Bill has been passed, even though everything seems to be headed toward integration and treating everybody equally, there were still schools in the South that said, we're going to stay segregated. I don't care what anyone says. And so they create this deal between Alabama and USC, because USC is the #1 team, but also, according to Sports Illustrated and all of these other publications, USC is the true #1, and Alabama has no business being in the top 5 because they're still an all-white team. And so Alabama, they call up the top dogs, they call up USC and say, listen, we're just as good as you, and we are superior. So what I want to do is I want you to come down and I want you to play us so that we can prove that we are the better team.
Yeah, and also, I truly believe Bear Bryant had that ulterior motive in the back of his head.
I feel like it was a trick.
Yeah, he knew that he was going to get passed by because obviously he watched tape of us the year before.
Oh, yeah.
And we lit it up the year before. And it didn't take a genius to go, okay, black guy, African-American guy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And he knew they were right there in his local area. He knew they were right there in the state. He was losing players.
Yeah.
He was losing players. So, you know, there is the motive of, you know, we want to go against top dog, but also if we get whacked, I can reverse this. If I'm Bear Bryant, I can reverse this and say,
this is why we need to integrate.
we better start thinking about integrating. So, you know, again, though, here comes a bunch of 18, 19, 20 years old.
Just kids, man.
Yeah,
Just kids.
And, you know, we get on the plane and say, all right, let's get it on.
No idea that you guys are going to change the face of anything. You guys are just, we go to practice, we go to class.
Yep.
That's all we know.
Yeah.
I have black roommates, I have white roommates, but what I do know is that we're all on the same team, we go to the same school, and we want to beat Alabama.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the difference in the culture being a California kid coming from a school like USC that's integrated. Yes, we still have some issues, but it's integrated. Now all of a sudden traveling down to Alabama and seeing real segregation.
Well, again, I mean, they showed the picture in the documentary. You know, I'm sitting on the airplane, and my roommate, Sam Dickerson, who's going to go on to a tremendous career at USC, a legendary wide receiver, a black kid, you know, and then Ronnie Ayala's in the picture, a Long Beach kid, our kicker, and there's two other, Big Sam Cunningham is leaning over the seat. You know, and we're
you guys are
excited.
hugging.
Yeah, we're excited.
It's everything I recognize from a football team.
And my first inclination that something was different, before we get off board the plane, the president of the university, a gentleman named Dr. Norm Topping, the players were in the kind of the back section of the plane. The alumni and the coaches were in the front section. But Norm comes in and we all get quiet, but we're all thinking, everybody goes, does he normally talk to you? No. And he in his opening words, he said, "Men, we're gonna do everything we can to protect you." And my head popped up and I go, what's he talking about? Protect us? Protect us from what? You know?
Right.
I honestly, I had a blank slate. I had no clue what he was talking about. And you know, and then a couple of black guys go, "Oh boy, it's going to be pretty interesting for you." You know,
you're going to get an education today.
Yeah, exactly. The education had just begun, and I kept thinking about it as we got off the plane and just got whacked in the face with the humidity and the heat, and we started through, and Jeff, I've never seen poverty like this, because we're driving through the outskirts of Tuscaloosa, and the houses are all up on stilts because of the floods and the tides or whatever it was, but I'm seeing something, and I'm going, you know, the buses are going down the streets, but the people are already lining the streets. Now, it's not a lot of people, but it's enough people to notice that, and they're all waving to us, all black, and you know, giving the fist pumps, and I'm sort of back at the poverty.
Right.
You know, you can't. I don't know, conditions like that I didn't even know existed.
Right.
Or I may have saw them in a textbook and blew it off. Said, well, they just found some place and took a picture of it.
Exactly.
And it was block after block after block. We go to the hotel, and immediately the white people are doing double takes. Like, what are they doing in here?
Wow.
And now you sense it. You sense this. It's hatred. It's bias. It's inferiority. It's a rotten thing that is being permeated in the lobby of this hotel. And there was a situation where we dispersed to go to our rooms.
Did you feel like you needed to protect your?
No, it was coming at me so fast,
Right.
and I was trying to digest it. I'm 19 years old, but I know because I was walking with my roommate Sam, and I was walking with, Toady Smith, who's, a legend at USC, and Jimmy Gunn, another legend. But they're just my buddies. I mean,
Right.
So then I kind of became normal again, back with my teammates,
Right.
walking to our rooms, looking forward to praying that they're air conditioned because it was so hot out. And there's a mom with her feet in the edge of the pool, and I will never forget this as long as I live. There's I don't know, 6, 7-year-old maybe, bouncing up and down in the shallow end, And he stopped, he looked at his mom, and I will never use this word, but he said, "Mom, they're letting enters in the hotel."
Wow.
And
6 or 7 years old.
yeah, 6 or 7 years old. And I went, uh-oh. And I mean, there was just boom. Because I was literally, myself and Bob Chandler was on the other end, and there was probably, 7 of us,
Right.
and five of our black teammates. And they looked at that kid, and I'm going, come on, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
just get to our rooms.
Let's just go to our rooms.
Yeah, and it was the most uncomfortable because I'm looking at them and I'm looking at this punk kid. Well, I shouldn't say that,
Yeah.
but I immediately, obviously, had
Yeah.
bad feelings about that kid.
Right.
And now we disperse. And,
Especially coming from where you guys come from.
yeah, it's just, but now as I reflect back,
Right.
you said it. It's a 6-year-old, it's a 7-year-old
Yeah.
using the word.
Somebody taught him.
And
Somebody taught him that.
and it was shocking. It was
Crazy.
shocking. And we got in the room, and I remember saying to Sam, "Hey Sam, man, that wasn't cool.
Right.
Sorry, bro. I don't know what to say." And he goes, "That's just the beginning." And I went, "Uh-oh." So now it's starting to resonate.
Right.
Okay. Now it's starting to implant itself that this is going to be different. And we had, it was a late afternoon by the time we had flown in, and the tradition was we always went to a movie theater, watch a movie on Friday night, get back, have a short position meeting, and then get ready for the game the next day. So we walked into the theater in downtown Tuscaloosa, very nice, upgraded theater,
Right.
where you'd take a date. And 3/4 to 90% of the white people looked around, and they all got up and left the theater. They weren't going to watch the movie.
Just completely segregated life.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there were a lot of comments being made
Yeah.
as these people were leaving by men, and it's still,
Yeah.
it makes me kind of sick to my
Yeah.
stomach. Because now we're sitting there, and I'm, looking around at my friends, my brothers,
Yeah.
my teammates, guys that I've battled with already, and guys that I competed against. And that's, now all of a sudden I start to think, what do they feel like?
Yeah.
And then I'm disappointed in my race. I'm disappointed in these people. You can't be mature. What's the difference?
Right.
Who cares who's sitting in the chair next to you? But that's
Yeah.
because I'm from Southern California. I don't know about it.
And I heard one of the teachers here at Modern Day say, like, when you start to experience empathy, I'm experiencing your pain in my heart.
Yeah.
And I feel like in that moment, you were overwhelmed with it because you're just like, man, I just want to watch a movie with my buddies.
Exactly.
I just want to relax because we're not running sprints right now.
We always went to the movies, either the drive-in, and it was something you do on a normal basis.
Yeah.
And now it's just completely become this statement situation. Yeah. And, the emotions that were running through my young head at the time, the shock is still there. Even when I say it to you or say it to the camera, I still feel this. I don't even like to tell the story because it's such a disappointment. You fast forward, it's game day now, and it's exciting. I'll tell you, you know, there's going to be 90,000 in the stadium.
Of course.
And Legion Field has an interesting history itself. It's if you stood at the top and looked out over Legion Field, okay, right down the street, within eyesight, is the Baptist church where the bombing took place.
Where the 4 girls died.
Yeah, where the 4 girls died.
Wow.
That's literally right there.
Right across from the football field.
Right. I didn't know that at the time, okay? But I guarantee you, because now you can see a little bit more, I'm going to say, not nervousness, but uncomfortableness by my teammates. They're a little edgier. And part of it is we're getting ready to go to battle. But, you know, I remember thinking to myself, I don't think we're going to have to say much before this game. We went through warm-ups, and the majority of the crowd had already entered the stadium. And
all white, I'm assuming.
All white, and that was what I kept looking around the stadium, and I'm going, well, this is a trip. They're all white people. And then way up in the far corner, I think as a courtesy, they sold 5,000 tickets, but they had a section roped off for all the black attendees. And that pissed me off.
Right.
And I mean, you know, they were so far, it was the farthest corner of the stadium.
Just out of spite.
So, yeah, what are they saying by that statement, you know?
And I know in the documentary, they made the majority of, like, the black residents stay outside.
Yes.
And, you know, it's funny, you touched on it earlier, but you said, like, they were lining up, all the black residents were lining up for your buses, essentially treating you guys like the home team.
Yeah.
That's what some of the guys in this film I watched said, you know, even though we were from Alabama, when USC came to town, they were our home team that night.
Yeah. And it's true. It took the buses forever to get into the stadium. So now you go to game time, and you know, I'm in the kickoff team, and
nice.
And, you know, we kicked off to them, so I got, you know, and I got down in there and got rocked around a little bit and had some fun. But the minute the contact started, here comes, you know, the talk, you know, and I'm going, really?
How did the white guys on Alabama treat you?
No, they were the ones popping off.
Oh my gosh.
They were the ones that were popping off, and it wasn't very nice. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, you're fueling a fire you don't want to mess with. And then now you can. I mean, it's a historical game. You know, we lit them up from one side to the other, and that's when Sam Cunningham got off. You know, something like 136 yards and, you know, 12 carries and 3 touchdowns. And Sam wasn't even supposed to start.
He was a freshman.
Yeah, but the way McKay worked it is he went to the hot hand, and Sam had a 25, 30-yard run on his first carry. And so, you know, McKay, like he said, you know, the football's not that heavy. Just keep giving it to him, you know. And I came into the game in the late third quarter, and you know, I was playing offense, and so I blocked the guy on a sweep, you know, and the guy grabs me by the throat, you know, and
has a couple nice words to say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he goes, you know, you Uncle Tom, you know what?
To you?
Yeah, to me.
Wow. Just because you have black friends.
Exactly. You know, I had some choice words back to him, which ended
honor,
with,
glory, love.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. For sure. But it was. But at the same time, I'm going. You know, okay. First of all, you get your ass handed to you.
Yeah.
We're just lighting you up.
Right.
And look at the scoreboard. But yet, that didn't matter. This hatred was past anything that I had ever
Unbelievable.
seen. And you know, the game ended, and you know, there's supposedly a legend that, you know, Bear Bryant came and grabbed Sam Cunningham and took him to their locker room and was supposedly said, this is a real football player. That didn't happen. You know,
Okay.
Sam will tell you. I
Okay.
mean, Sam's a very, very good friend of mine to this day. But Bear Bryant did come in our locker room, okay, and pretty much told us, you know, nobody's ever come into Tuscaloosa and done that to his university. And he congratulated us.
Okay.
You know, we celebrated, and then we got dressed, and you just wanted to get out of the locker room. It was so hot in there. And we went outside, and now the crowd had grown to massive numbers. The estimation is that there were 10,000 people outside.
Outside?
Yeah, waiting for
So these are all the residents?
all black.
I'll say all the black residents.
All the black residents.
Wow.
And they were respectful, you know, parted, let you go to the bus, but just, you know, if you stopped and talked or signed an autograph,
Wow, okay.
you know, they were grinning ear to ear.
Yeah.
You know, they loved every second of it. And I remember the last thing that I would say is, you know, on the bus ride back and we're going to fly straight out. That's the way McKay did it.
Yep.
He didn't care what time we got back to L.A. And on the bus ride to the airport, I had all these conflicting emotions. Okay, we won a big game. I got to play a lot, you know, but yet, where am I at? Is this really, is this the United States? Did we fly out of country somewhere?
Right, like,
You
yeah,
know,
it feels like a whole different
Yeah,
country
yeah.
flying, okay?
And now I had this basis. It broadened my horizons as to why the situation is what it is. That
Right.
the divide is there. The racial prejudice is deep, and it's deep rooted. And for most of those people, they weren't going to change. Even
Right.
though a black team beat their white team, that wasn't
They
going to
don't
change.
want to hear about
that.
it. Right.
Yeah, I think it takes, and it's going to take a lot longer. I think we've turned a corner.
I was going to just ask, do you think we're
Yeah.
better now?
Yeah, I think we're better now because, you know, you're looking at this old coach, and it's probably harder for you to see that, but I saw how bad it was.
Right.
Okay.
I have no frame of reference.
And if you go 20 years back from that,
It's even worse. Yeah.
You know, it was so deep-seated and so deep-rooted. And I'm not saying it's gone away. I don't know if it'll go away, but
Right.
it is definitely better now than it was, 40, 50 years ago.
And that's something I always try to get through to the kids too.
Yeah.
Like, even though it seems bad now, we are force-fed so much negativity and so much anger and so much hatred that it feels like we're back in time. But I don't necessarily know if that's true, and the only way for me to find out is to lean on someone who's been there and been through it. And so that's why I talk to you as much as I do, because people in your generation, will say, have a different perspective and different outlook on how everything is going and how everything feels. It's similar, but it's better, is the notion I'm getting from a lot of people older than me.
But it should be better.
But it should be better than where
It
we're
should
at.
have happened faster.
Got it.
It's taken too darn long.
Okay.
And now you know, I mean, I've had integrated football teams since I became the head coach, and I didn't start it. I didn't integrate modern day football, and now I look at my present players and players of the past, and you know, there's been situations, you know, and recent situations where there's no room for racial comments. And then when I talk to good men like our assistant coaches, you know, and you know, for him to tell me that he still has to have the talk with his son.
Yeah.
The talk is
The talk.
what to do
If you get pulled
you're
over.
stopped
Yep.
by a white cop.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And then I drove home after he told me that, and I go, come on, let's go. That's.
Yeah.
But it.
I would imagine that some people are just tired. Like, if you guys have been through it in the 60s and then once again through the 90s, and then you say to yourself, here we are again in 2020. I mean, it's got to be exhausting.
Yeah, it's discouraging.
Right.
It's discouraging. But then you have to look at the positives and the progress.
At least we're talking about it.
And exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And there has been great progress, but it's slow and it's got to speed up. I mean, that would be my comment. And we're all part of it. Nobody's exclusive of it.
Right.
It doesn't matter, you just gotta. I think you gotta look inside yourself. You gotta look inside, and you have to say, all right, what do I truly believe? Who am I? What do I truly,
Yeah.
And then it starts with each individual person, and there is no room for this type of behavior.
No pride, no arrogance. I mean, we just have to be able to break down as human beings and be able to have that vulnerable conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But I hope we've been able to, today shed some light on it, because it's a situation that I like it that it's out in front now, you know. And I'll be honest with you, it has brought all the teaching back in me,
Right.
Because I want my athletes to talk to me about it, and I want to learn more, because I want their experience in modern day football and at modern day high school. And I think our school has made massive strides.
Massive.
And there's really some good stuff coming down the road, and we are united. I want every person, irregardless of race, creed, or color, to be comfortable in athletics, comfortable at whatever school they attend.
In the classroom.
Yeah.
At home.
Yeah.
Hanging out with your friends.
Yep.
At a school dance, if that ever comes back.
Yeah. Behind the mask up.
Well, I'm so glad we had this opportunity to just talk about a lot of things that are happening here in the United States as far as race is concerned, as far as injustice and equality is concerned, and just how we're feeling on the inside. And I just want to thank you, Coach, for being here and being so gracious to share your wisdom and experience with us.
Hopefully, like you say, that there's something that we can take away. Just you and I sitting together, okay? Just talking. It's powerful stuff. Like I say, I hope we shed some light on some difficult issues and continue to move forward at a rapid pace together.
That's it.
Together, brother.
There it is.